How does this keep happening to me? I keep muting myself. No. Hello. What's up? Yo, yo, yo. Hello. How we doing? I meant to come in on a yo, yo, yo. And then I came in with a muted mic. Hello. What's up? It's weird to be back. I have not streamed in a little bit. Also, I'm going to zoom out the camera a tad. It was very zoomed in. Okay. Cool. What's up, Daniel Delphi? Hello. Oh, is the camera cool? The camera's cool. All right. Hello. How are we? Did you like it? I hope you liked it. I don't even know what I feel about it anymore. It's I spent so long staring at myself. I don't think I'm a real human anymore. I'm not a real boy. I am a digital amalgam. But I'm back. What's up? Inventory week, so I've only seen the beginning part of the video. It's a good video. I honestly think, how would I say it? I don't think the beginning is the weakest part necessarily, but it is the most maybe non-novel. You know what I'm saying? It's like I wanted to lay the foundation with 5e, but I also think that like the 5e discussion, it's not necessarily, again, I don't want to say the least interesting, but I think it's going to be like the least new to people. You know, we spend plenty of time thinking about D&D. We don't think about BRP or Clockworld or all those sorts of shits. So yeah. Oh, I didn't finish stream setup, so it's probably going to go. Brrr. Okay, it didn't. All right, whatever. There we go. All right. I definitely see why it took you so long. Oh my god. Okay, that's one of the things that I wanted to say, because I said it a little bit in comments, I said a little bit in the Discord, but I like to, have a video where I say everything, but it also feels like weird to like follow up this like big long video with another video in the videos tab. Feels more natural, at least to me, to make a live, and then I can talk to people about it. Excuse me. It does seem to me to go from broad to less broad appeal. That wasn't the intention, but I can see what you're saying. Yeah. I can definitely see that. Which, I mean, that's that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm excited for the rest of the video, just need the actual time. I get it. And that's, okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the time. It's fucking long. Who could? And I saw equal parts, like, man, this is really long, like, in kind of a more negative connotation, and others kind of like, that's mega, or that's, what's wrong with it being so long, etc., etc. And it made me realize, where's the comment? Let me see. I'm not gonna post it directly, or I'm not gonna share the screen. Oh yeah. One of the first comments, actually, it's like, this is great, Mega, but 3 hours. Maybe consider making a short series next time. I'm only watching a few segments because it's so long. And my, I'll tell you my gut reaction, and then, kind of the thoughts that I had afterwards, or the realizations that I came to. My gut reaction was, well, do you think I wanted it to be that long? Do you think I wanted it to be 3 hours? And then I kind of sat there with that thought for a moment, and I was like, they probably do. That's not an unreasonable thing to think, that if a creator puts out a 3 hour video, they probably intended for it to be 3 hours, or at least very long. Maybe they intended it to be 2.5 and it, blew up to 3, whatever. But but I think it's a pretty understandable perspective to see 3 hours and come away with the perception that I wanted it to be that long, and then I kind of I chose that path. I did not. When I started, I wanted it to be 45 minutes. And it made me realize even more, because I have a long history of watching YouTube. YouTube has been my main entertainment source for basically most of my waking life. Most of the life in which I can think. I was watching videos on my iPod Touch on dial-up internet. Right? YouTube has been my thing. So I have a long history of viewing it as a viewer and being in that mentality. And I sort of put myself back into that, and I was well, I do think that even for newer or smaller creators, I do kind of assume a level of competence, I suppose. I assume a level of a creator has a vision and then they execute on it. And I assume a level of competence in actually the result kind of fitting the vision, or at least being close to it. And now being a creator, I can see that is not always the case. I had an incredibly different vision for this video. At least in terms of the length. I don't think in terms of the actual content, but I had a very different vision for the packaging and the format, essentially, than actually ended up being practical. And so, I think there was there's this kind of assumption that if it's 3 hours, I must have meant for it to be that, and I must not have thought about why that's maybe a bad idea. Which, again, I think is a fair mindset, but to, I guess, clear it up, no, that was not the intention. The intention was for it to be much, much shorter. Much shorter. And it was primarily my own naivete about the constraints that would be placed on the video in ways that I just didn't expect at all. That made it 3 hours instead of 45 minutes. I hadn't realized the Dragon video was out. Gotta watch it. I'll also say something that I don't do very often, because how do I say this? Most of my content is very targeted. I like doing things that are... I've been talking to some people about some projects. I will say, the one insanely good net positive thing that came out of this, not even net positive, just pure positive, is it put me in contact with so many cool people. And I think you might see me in some more places. We'll just say that. But anyways, something I don't do very often is I don't often ask people to share my videos or my content. Sometimes I'll do the comment, subscribe thing, but I don't often say to share it with your friends or whatever. Because Critical Eyes and even Fantasy, Dissecting 20 to an extent, is a pretty targeted piece of content. It's very it is for the audience that it's for. And that's because I like doing things that are novel and unique and no one else is doing, or no one else is doing it in the way that I'm doing it. And that is what really excites my own creativity, my personal creativity. And that, I think, kind of leads towards the content being kind of targeted at a more niche sort of audience, kind of a niche of a niche. Not to say that there's not a lot of people in that niche, but it's not often that I'm oh, share it. But this is the first video that I have personally shared with my family and friends. Not because I'm embarrassed. I've shared my channel before with family and friends. But this is the first one where I was oh, I think anyone Like I would want anyone to watch this because I think it's very cool. So yeah, go watch it, share it, do all the things, and yeah, I liked it. Anyways, to some degree, it's down to format. Lives are expected to be long and short is the exception. Pre-record is kind of the exception, or kind of the opposite. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. It's an expectation thing, and you know, it's. I think that their expectation was reasonable. Yeah, Mega can't not do long format. I wanted to try. I wanted to try so bad, and I'll talk to all of the reasons because I think they're interesting. You know, if you're interested at all in like the inside baseball, kind of how the sausage is made, sort of stuff, I will go through all the factors that made it so long because I know them very distinctly. Like I know exactly why it went so long. I remember YouTube becoming extant. Yeah. Love the video. Clockworld sounds awesome. Hell yeah. Thank you, Sheev is my city. I love the creativity to fit the theme with a dragon. Mobile monster factory war machine is so cool. Oh my gosh. Tales from Elsewhere, Peter, was so cool. I honestly, if I'm being truly honest, I think the two systems that I was most personally interested in, you know, outside of interview Mega, just as like, you know, running for my home table were Beckoning Dream and Clockworld. Everything else was super cool. And if my table was into it, I was into all of the systems separately. But those two specifically, especially using Beckoning Dream as like one shot, like when someone can't be there sort of stuff, that'd be so cool. I mean, I talked about Beckoning Dream in a Critical Eyes. So yeah, I mean, I thought all of them sounded, and I was glad that I got a lot of really different ones, really, really different. I think the two that were the most similar were probably BRP and Clockworld, although I don't know that necessarily came off in the video. It might come off in the longer interviews that I eventually edit and post. But yeah, Clockworld and BRP were probably the most similar, but even they were like so very different. They just had kind of similar like core philosophies that led to them, some of their mechanics feeling similar. But they were achieving very different ends and very different goals, which I thought was cool. I haven't seen the full video yet, but I know Diana of the Rose in there, so I'm hyped for her sections. I love her shorts. She was great. Oh my gosh, Diana was awesome. I can share this now. I definitely, and this is you know, this goes back to like the entire kind of idea being kind of not naive, but well, yes, naive, but also like in some ways poorly organized on my part, because I don't know how much it, you know, came off, but like Diana has never played an actual session of Memento Mori. She's just read it a lot and like is very interested in Memento Mori and that genre of TTRPGs and that whole like space. And so she was a very different interview than the others, because most of the others were either the designers of the system or people that had, you know, run, you know, had a lot of like very direct experience. And there's a large, there's a few moments that I cut out because they were just kind of, they're not awkward necessarily, but they're just, you know, kind of lulls, because you when I eventually post the kind of more full interview, you'll see like during the middle, I kind of get a little like flustered because I'm nervous. I'm going into all of these interviews super nervous for varying reasons. But I'm nervous and I sort of start to realize that like the questions I had prepared and like the types of questions that I'd asked a lot of the people that I'd interviewed before her just like wouldn't work and like wouldn't apply. And so I asked her like 2 or 3 questions in a row that she was basically just like, I don't know, man, haven't played the system really. And I was like, oh, fuck. Because I was so deathly afraid of wasting people's time. I was so afraid of like, grabbing someone, them donating their time, their effort, and their thoughts, and then me wasting their time through poor interviewing. And I think that ultimately, like, I guess I won't speak for Diana. I don't know how she felt afterward. But I think, it overall went very well. But man, I came out of that interview so depressed. I came out of that interview thinking, God damn, I'm done. I'm done in this town, in this community. She's gonna be like, man, I wasted my fucking time. I was beating myself up like crazy about that interview. And then I went back and watched it and I was like, oh, it went fine. It went fine. It went good. I hope she enjoyed it. I don't know. She might not have, but I think it went ultimately well. And I told some of my friends about it after the interview, and some of them watched the video and they were like, which one went poorly? And I was like, oh, this one. And they were like, I could not tell. So I'm hoping that, it didn't come off in the video, and I'm hoping that she had a good time. She couldn't tell how like nervous and out of sorts I was. But yeah, it was that was part of the unplanned nature of it. Is I just told them, I believe my exact words were like, pick a system that excites you the most, essentially. Because she like, put up a couple of things that she could talk about. And I said, the one that excites you the most. And I did not like give them any pre-prepared questions. That was sort of on purpose because I wanted more gut reactions. But I just did not tailor the interview nearly as well to her as I did to a lot of the others. Which was also, I mean, we'll get back to this later, but that was one of the challenges in the edit. But yeah, she was super cool. I will say, wholeheartedly, I did not interact with a single dungeon tuber throughout all of this, because I interacted with so many more than you saw. Some people like were in and then they were out for very reasonable reasons, and I'm not going to name them. Some people, just said no out of hand, said, I'm too busy. And then, some kind of, we talked a little bit about it, and then they were like, I don't know. So I talked to a lot of dungeon tubers for this, and they are all fucking sweet. They're such sweethearts. They're so nice. I got like ghosted by one or two, but honestly, on the order that I reached out to dozens of creators. Because originally I wanted 9, which seems insane in retrospect. But the original idea was 9 dragons walk into a pub. And I had a kind of a different concept for like how the actual like format of the video would go. But yeah, it seems ludicrous now, but I was originally trying to get 9. And so I reached out to a lot more people than you ended up seeing. But they were all so nice. They were so nice. My main feedback that I want to give live. Let's see. So the meaning lost. It seems like most of the video is not actually about the dragons. That could be constructive as negative, but I found it to be positive. I enjoyed the people I'd never seen before and the projects they were talking about. Yeah. Oh man, that's another thing. And this is something I wanted to address live, because me and Eden really went back and forth on it. Really went back and forth on like, we talked, every single person that you saw, every single interview, talked about the dragons way more than you guys saw. Maybe not way more, but a substantial amount more. Substantial. Unfortunately, it was often the most boring part of the video, of the interview. Talking about the actual dragons was really often not the most interesting part. So we tried to include as much as we could of discussing the dragons, but ultimately to like get it to an even remotely reasonable length, which, 3 hours reasonable, while still making it very interesting, we had to cut a lot of the dragon stuff. So I'm excited for the individual interviews. Those are going to be, much closer to the interview's actual runtime. We're going to cut it down here and there, but it's going to be much closer to just like the raw footage. And so you'll see a lot more talk of the specific dragons. Some interviews focused on them more than others, but all of them focused on it more than you saw in the actual video, which did sort of, sidestep the original intent, but time. I watched it over multiple days. Yeah. It being split up in different interviews made it more approachable. I treated it like multiple smaller videos in that way. Yeah, and I think you definitely can do that. And that's why I added the chapters. Like, I added the chapters specifically so that it was like, ideally more consumable. I also don't know why I have these on. I'm not listening to anything. We're not listening to anything. I don't need those. But yeah. A good thing now is you have plenty of material now to make shorter videos highlighting the parts of the interviews. So one longer video gets 7 shorter videos. Very common to make. Yeah, absolutely. And that will definitely happen. Yeah. I don't think anyone who hasn't seen CRD20 would watch most of your lives. Yeah, exactly. Going back to the targeted, kind of novelty and content. Yeah. It would have been nice if during the post-interview summary time, the name of the person was on the screen prominently. That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair takeaway. Because I know that they were on it when they first got introduced at the heads of their chapters. But if you're making it to the end of the video, that's probably when you would actually want to click off to like go and research them. So that's fair. That's definitely fair. I put them in the like first lines of the description, but yeah, that's a fair nitpick. I get that. Doing it at the top is common, but I don't know if I like the thing yet. Doing it afterward, yeah. Maybe specifically look the ones I was excited about. Yeah. That's fair. That's totally fair. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah. I had not even heard of Diana before your video. To have a tab to check her out later now. Yeah, she's great. Everyone in that video is awesome. They're all very, very cool. Yeah. The importance of it being on screen increased over time. Yeah. It's amazing how different the creator and audience view can be. I'm not trying to play favorites, disparage any of the people to avoid the bad feels, but she was definitely near the top of my list. Yeah, they were, and that was another thing that I really, I was really glad to have the collaborators I did, have the systems I did, because not only were the systems very unique, but there was a lot of like unique personalities on display in the video. I love the interviews were so fun. I found the interview portion, like actually making the interviews and doing that, so insanely satisfying. So satisfying. The editing, I hated. I was going insane during the edit. Because I was doing a lot of the editing. Eden still did the bulk of it, but I was doing a lot of the basically anything I could to take work off of his plate. Because there was just so much to get through. And I hated the edit. Alright, gut reactions. It might be a good idea to share the main list of questions, then tell the person you'll have a few that aren't listed. That way someone at least feels some control. Yeah, so one of the things that I realized about, I think the way that I conducted all of the interviews was good for making a good interview, but not necessarily for making a very editable video. Like making a very editable interview. Especially an editable interview that is going to be set in contrast and juxtaposition to several other interviews. I definitely needed to standardize it more. Not because I think it would have frankly made the interviews worse, which is why I didn't do it. But it would have made, I think, the overall video better, unfortunately. But that's that's something that I learned about the difference, and I kind of mentioned it at the end, of the difference of interviewing versus interviewing for an edit. It's a very, very, or not very, very, but pretty different experience. Because I loved the interviews, I loved how they came out, but they were, God, impossible to put together. I can't believe we got it to 3 hours. I'm being real. Yeah. You wanted the video to be 24 hours long. Yeah, with the 9, probably. If I'd had 9 people in there, it probably would have been 5 hours. Yeah, because of other reasons. Yeah. I always assume the ghosting will be the default response of everyone. The few times I've gotten neurodivergence to reach out to, I've gone over my neurodivergence to reach out to experts. I've been surprised at how many reply. Absolutely. I was very surprised at how many people, and like, oh, this is a story I can tell. This is a story I can tell because oh man, because I told it during the interview. I wasn't sure that I was going to initially, but I told this story during the interview, so now I feel fine talking about it publicly. I had no idea who Chaosium or what Chaosium was when I reached out to them. No idea. The way that I found them was by searching. I wanted something darker. I hadn't gotten Memento Mori at that point, and I hadn't gotten Clockworld at that point. So I wanted something darker. And so I looked up Call of Cthulhu actual plays. And I was like, I'll reach out to some actual players. And the first thing that came up, or like one of the first things that came up, was Chaosium's channel. And if you don't know, Chaosium is the developer and publisher of Call of Cthulhu. But they also have a pretty sizable YouTube channel where they do like fucking YouTube content. I had no idea about that. And so I reach out to them, and the contact email goes to a person, and I pitch them on it. I give my elevator pitch, and they kind of say, "Oh, we're going to send you over to this person, basically to like our marketing person, I guess." And I was like, "I have a marketing person, okay, whatever." And so then the marketing person, me and them are interfacing for a little bit, and they're like, "Hell yeah, like that sounds super cool. Definitely interested." And I go, "Great. I need to know, or I need to lock down what system everyone's doing." Because that was kind of part of the process, is I got people to sign on and then kind of locked down a system that they were doing. And so I listed off like all of these potential systems that I had seen on the channel. And I was like, "Oh, you could do any of these. I don't know if you guys run any others or have experience in any others." And the guy goes, it was a slightly longer email than this. I won't show it on screen because I used my real name in it. But it was a slightly longer email. But the email essentially boiled down to, "Do you know what who Chaosium Games is? Like, do you know about Chaosium Games?" and this wasn't even a tip off for me at this point. I was just like, "Oh no, like I honestly, I fibbed a little bit." I was like, "Oh, you got recommended by one of my community members, et cetera, et cetera. So I know of you by reputation, but not directly." And I can't even imagine how weird that sounded. Like, looking back at all my replies, thank God I give a very standard amount of respect and niceness, regardless of clout. I interact with people who have more or less influence or more or less clout in similar to the same ways. Thank God. And so I'd been I think I'd been very nice to talk to, and I'd been super respectful the whole time. Even though I had no idea who I was talking to. And and so eventually it's I respond with that, and it's radio silence for a week or two. And I can only imagine that they're doing research into me and trying to figure out if I'm worth it. And and then eventually they just respond, and they don't say anything about it, and we keep on going, we keep on planning. And then I remember it so clearly. I was at the gym, I was in the bathroom, and I was watching YouTube on the toilet. Hey, I'm a person. And I see an interview with Mike Merles. And I'm like, oh, he's a D&D guy. Like, that'll be interesting. And it's like, welcome Mike Merles, like former, designer at Wizards of the Coast, now at Chaosium, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of pause it. I'm like, Chaosium? Is that? What? And I go and I look in my email. I look at who I've been emailing. And then I go back to the interview and I rewind it. And it's like, now at Chaosium. And I'm like, and I Google Chaosium Inc. and I fucking realize who I've been talking to. It was crazy. And I do not mention it at all. I just go through the process. We go through planning. I get Jason on the phone, and then me and Jason, it was sparks. It was great. I loved interviewing Jason, and like halfway through the interview, I told him that anecdote, and he thought it was very funny. I think, or maybe he was just being polite. I don't know. I think he thought it was funny. But yeah, that was definitely the most interaction from this whole thing. And it definitely taught me that I can definitely reach out to more people. Given how things went, both behind the scenes and the end result, would you consider doing something similar ever again? Rarely, often, never? Yes, absolutely. I would I'm not going to say that this will be an annual thing for Monster Week. I am not committing to that. I want to be very clear. But no, absolutely. I very much, because I've tried to do, you guys have never seen it because I never quite figured out how I wanted to do it, but I've tried to do TTRPG reviews in the past. And I think that this sort of interview format is much more my speed than research and presentation, if that makes sense. Like sitting down with someone and asking them pointed questions and trying to find interesting truths with someone who is an expert and who knows what they're talking about, I think is way more up my alley than a research and presentation sort of thing. So I don't know what exact form it'll take, but I can almost guarantee that I will do something similar to this in the future. Probably not something that looks exactly like this, because I think personally that I made so many mistakes during this. But yes. Why would it make the interview worse? Wait, what was the last thing? The questions? Oh, the list of questions. Okay, yeah. If you're talking to people about their professional projects, what is the gotcha's value of surprising people with every question? The value of it is getting how exactly do I say it? The value of surprising them. And when I say surprising, I told people the general directions, the general line of questioning. I was very clear about that. I was like, okay, we'll talk about your dragon. And then I might latch on to a specific part of the dragon and ask you about that. And we'll just kind of see where those conversations go. And with a really rigid list of questions, you get a very structured amount of information, right? You get the information that you, the interviewer, think that you want, right? So if I prep all of the questions ahead of time, I get I get all of the information that those questions point towards. And especially if I send them the if I send them the questions ahead of time and they can prepare their answers, again, I get that information, but I get it in a very clinical sort of way, a very exact sort of information, which is, in my view at least, a bit of a detriment towards natural instincts and sort of impassioned responses, we might say. because the interview only has like a certain amount of time it can go, right? And so if I have this pre-prepared list of questions, they have pre-prepared answers, we're going through them, and there is much less opportunity, I guess, for natural follow-ups because they've sort of, clenched down on their answer. They may not, if I surprise them with the question, they might reference a bit of information that isn't necessarily relevant. They might reference a piece of the system that, is maybe kind of relevant, but not, they probably would have cut from a pre-prepared answer. And to me, at least, those things, the things that they would have cut for time in their pre-prepared answer, reveal more of their mindset and reveal more of their desires and loves and passions, and lead to, I think, in my personal view, more interesting destinations. Letting the process be more natural and more conversational, I think, leads to more interesting truths, even if maybe the journey is a little bit more meandering and not as maybe doesn't get as much information back. Like, I think a pre-prepared list and a pre-prepared answers would get a lot more information, especially in a short amount of time, which is why I should have done it for this video. But it won't have that natural feel. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, I should have done it for this video, because I would have been able to get more information that was more relevant in a shorter period of time. And it would have been intensely easier to edit together because there would have been really like clean delineation points. Whereas in the more natural interviewing style, there weren't as like clean cut of points where we could like cut the edit. You know what I'm saying? So I should have done exactly that for this interview, but I don't think that it leads to as interesting of stuff in the comparably. Yeah. Having an interview question list is standard. I will also say I had pre-prepared questions. I just didn't give it to them. And I only asked them if we still had time in the interview. And we kind of entered a lull in the conversation. So I tried, like, the first probably half of each interview was almost entirely conversational. And then I would jump in with a pre-prepared question that was tailored and specific to them when it was relevant. But I should have, not only should I have had a question list and I should have given it to them so that they could have prepared answers, I should have had a standard question list. I should have had the same questions for all of them and then let the back half of the interview be maybe more conversational. It just we wouldn't have had as much time for that more conversational tone. Yeah. Lets people prepare answers and feel more relaxed and prepared on camera. Yeah, I guess it depends on. I guess I don't view. How do I say it? I don't see a desperate need to make people feel relaxed heading into it, because I think I'm pretty good at doing that just through my general vibe. Because I think you're right. I do think that is like a consideration, especially if maybe you're doing a more maybe adversarial interview, maybe an interview where you're like pressing and you're asking hard questions and you're maybe trying to get information that they may not want to give. I can see being more relaxed and prepared being important. But I was interviewing these people about their expertise, about their opinions, really, mostly. And I think I just do a good job of just making people feel relaxed. Hopefully, I guess the interviewees can let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's not those two factors aren't a huge priority for me personally, at least in the types of interviews that I've done so far. It lets them share their best work and get across what people need to hear. Yeah, and that's also maybe part of it, is I wasn't necessarily looking for them to share work. I was wanting them to talk naturally about their like opinions and their loves. And even if they don't share their opinion exactly, correctly, I favored it being more natural. Yeah. Unless you're foreign, I don't know how it's standard for YouTube culture. Sometimes anything, especially if the interviewee is relatively unknown. Yeah. So introduce the audience, not shock them. These are supposed to introduce the audience, not shock them. It's standard to give people a list or agenda. Yeah, and I mean, I gave an agenda, just not the specific questions that were going to be asked. So like I don't think if you asked any of the interviewees, they would find my my line of questioning unexpected. I think my line of questioning was pretty expected for all of them. They just didn't know the exact questions I was going to ask. Yeah. Eden is crying that you ever want to do this again. Eden, fucking probably. For having naturalism, but I think the whole interview that way is something you'll probably end up moving away from as you do more interviews /cynical. I doubt it. These are not the first interviews I've ever done. To be clear, I actually have a history, and I wouldn't say expertise by any means. But I have quite a few interviews under my belt, and I've done the prepared list style, absolutely. But how do I say it? I didn't realize what sort of style I would want because I've never been the one editing the video. I've never been the one that cared about that side of things. I've always just been focused on giving a good performance, and most of the interviewing I've done has been in person, live. Well, that's not true. I've done some interviews for video, but they were, one-off, single, mostly raw, unedited. And so that's kind of where I've developed that style, is in the more unedited, incapable of being edited sort of style. And I think that is not good. That style is not good for the video I was trying to make here. You'll figure out how to have more structure and create natural opportunities in the moment. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of think I already know how to do that. I just didn't realize that I would want to do that for an edited video. But IRL chuckling at your interaction is Chaosium as someone that is in entertainment marketing. Honestly, it's probably refreshing for the person you were emailing with. That's cool. That's good. I felt crazy awkward. Sounds like you're already discovering your balance for next time. Absolutely, yeah. I think I honestly would have been even more. I feel myself being a little bit defensive. I won't lie. I know. But I think I would probably be much more defensive about my interviewing style before doing this video, because my style was the wrong choice for this particular interview, or this series of interviews, because that was the part of the big issue with it, which I can kind of speak to. The interviews themselves, can I see this really easily? I probably can't. I don't know exactly. Yeah. But they were very varying times. Like, I think the shortest interview was 45 minutes, and the longest interview was close to 2 hours, maybe over 2 hours. And so a big reason that I, in retrospect, would have wanted it to be more structured is because I wanted everyone to get roughly equal time. So, like, the shortest one by far is Mr. Welch, which I honestly feel kind of shitty about. but his was the first interview that I did. Mr. Welch was the very, very first one that I interviewed. And he, I when I went into them, like I told all of the interviewees, I was like, 30 minutes and I'll take the best 2 to 5 minutes out of that. It'll be tough to edit down, but I'll figure it out. We'll do 30 minutes, best 2 to 5. And then Mr. Welch, we're having, good conversation. We're talking, we're chatting. And, we get to like 40 minutes. And I'm like, hey, if you need to go, we can. And he's like, no, we can wrap up the conversation. It's fine. And so, I'm kind of not rushing necessarily, but I'm definitely focused at that point on wrapping up the interview because I already feel like I've taken too much of his time, right? I very much underestimated the amount of time that people would be willing to give me once I actually sat down with them. People were very hesitant to, give up the time at all, going from like 0 to something. They were very hesitant to give that up. But once like one of the interviewees, like I on every single interview, there was a point where I asked like, oh, if you need to go, whatever, we can wrap it up. And inevitably every single person was like, no, we can keep going. That's fine. Everyone. And so that happened with Mr. Welch. And then next one was Beckoning Dream in terms of filming order. And that one went way longer. And I kind of asked him, maybe around like the 50-minute mark or the hour mark, like, hey, I don't want to take up too much of your time if you got to go. And he was like, oh no, we can finish. You can wrap up asking your questions, so after that, the times just ballooned like crazy. It was all of the, I think every interview besides Mr. Welch's was over an hour, and most were over an hour and a half, closer to 2 hours. And that was so far outside of the original plan. The original plan was a 30-minute interview. But once people kind of opened the floodgates, I had originally said 30 minutes because I wanted to like downplay it. I wanted to essentially, convince them to talk to me. And I totally underestimated the time that they would be willing to give. And so once we were there and we were talking passionately and we were like diving into these ideas, it's very hard for me to cut it short. Because in my head, it's like, okay, if I'm not getting cut off and the interview is going well, I'm not going to artificially end it. But that just ballooned the times like crazy. And it resulted in this, like the longer the interviews got, the more we ran into an issue where they had these very varying times, right? And some of the interviews would cut down more naturally than others. So if I remember correctly, I think BRP pretty naturally cut down to like 30 minutes, and Clock World naturally cut down to like 50. And that was something that I was not cool with for the actual like end product. I was not cool with giving one person like 50 minutes and one person like 20 minutes. Again, it happened with Mr. Welch, and I feel really bad about that, but it was because his was so drastically shorter than everyone else's. And we experimented with like including more of his footage and like not cutting things that we would have cut in the other videos. And it made the tone feel weird. It made the tone feel weird because it like the like tonal beats of his interview then felt out of place compared to the other ones. So that was an incredibly tough challenge of taking these like natural cut down times and trying to like get them towards like a 10-minute margin of each other. I don't even think we succeeded in that. I think we ultimately got it to where, like, excluding Mr. Welch, the other 6, I think were within like 21 minutes, and then the longest one was like 35 minutes. And that was about the best we could do. And that involved like pumping up some of the times and, trying to, mush down some of the other kinds. So yeah, that was one of the things that I was really naive about when planning the video, is not like when I was like, oh, I've done an interview before. I kind of know how it goes. I know about how difficult it is to edit just from like, hearing about it. I know about how difficult this will be. So, doing 7 of those, it's not, I knew it was going to be harder than like purely linear. Like I knew it wasn't just going to be 7 times as hard, but I way underestimated the amount of difficulty that it would increase. Massively underestimated. I probably, if I'm being honest with myself, I probably thought it'd be like 15 times, 14 times as hard, somewhere around there. Maybe like, double linear. It was way closer to like 90 to 100 times as hard. Like every subsequent interview not only meant that, that was one more that we had to like try and fit in like the nice time range, but also I had to think about the ordering of them and like honing in on a specific theme which within each one, and trying to get those themes to like play well together and kind of have at least an attempt at a through line so that it's not just interview. Like I needed to, the fact that they were all in one video, and even though I don't even think I accomplished it very well because of just how I interviewed, but we had to at least try to go towards a more cohesive video. You know what I'm saying? And every single one that we added from that is like, oh man, like the most interesting things that the most naturally interesting things that I talked about in Clockworld and BRP were both player autonomy. I think that both of those interviewees made excellent points when it comes to player autonomy and really like had some really unique insights that were totally separate from each other. But I didn't want to have 2 interviews about player autonomy in the same video. So I then focused in on a different kind of overall message and symbology for the BRP interview. So every single interview that I added to the pile added on all of these additional constraints onto all of the others. That's a really huge reason that it blew up so much. Also a reason it would have been really good for me to have a standard list of questions between all of them. So I could have more directly juxtaposed them rather than needing to hone in on like a unique message. I could have instead juxtaposed the different answers to the same questions. Like it's honestly pretty similar in the process of the interview, but it's massively different in the process of the edit. So that's what I mean by like interviewing for an edit, is those sorts of concerns of like, I couldn't juxtapose the interviews between each other that well, because I didn't ask them the same questions. I asked them all very different, very bespoke questions, like to their system. And if I had asked them a standard list of questions, honestly, whether or not I gave them the opportunity to prepare an answer, I could have juxtaposed those answers in the edit, and that would have added, frankly, a lot of freedom to the edit that we really did not have here. Yeah. So that was tough. Hearing this during with Chaos was so funny to me. It's funny to me in retrospect. I was so worried about it at the time. Yeah. I do think you have great personal charisma and getting people to relax. Thank you. But the most charming person in the world across the screen doesn't change. The issue for many people is the camera, not the interviewer. That's fair. That's a very fair that's a very fair response. Again, yeah, because a lot of my history is doing in-person interviewing. That is what I did primarily for. I was like the social media guy for ROTC. I worked with the IT department on media creation to explain like upcoming IT changes. So I would interview like our CIO and shit like that, and then we'd disseminate that to the student body. So I was definitely, a lot of my experiences in-person interviewing, not over the web interviewing. So that's fair. That I do see what you're saying about the camera being the potential irritant rather than necessarily me or the interview or the style. Yeah, I get that. It likely would have been the weeks leading up to the interview that did my nerves in the most. Oh my! I was crazy nervous for every single interview. Yeah. But they were also all kind of creatives. Yeah. Not comparing apples to apples, admittedly, but I'm curious about how the Dragon video did versus the one D20, since you blamed the D20 one on length. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely talk about that. Currently, the Dragon Week video, I think it's a 1 out of 10. I actually don't even know how to see that on the web client. I only know how to see that on my phone. Wait, 1 second. I'll check. It's either a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. It's doing great. Yeah, it's 1 out of 10. It's 1 out of 10, and the really long D20 video is, at this point, it's like a 3 out of 10. Like compared to the other rankings that I'm seeing. This video has a way higher click through. It has a higher average view duration. Actually, it has a lower average view duration because it's more people taking a chance on it. But I will say there's a pretty distinct reason for that, and I'll show it. Where's the screen share? Boop. Oh, that's the wrong screen to share. No. No, dang it. I got rid of it. Wait. Analytics. There we go. So, yeah. How viewers found the video. 25% of the views currently are coming from playlists. They're coming from the Dragon Week playlist. Without that traffic, this video would actually be doing worse than the it would be doing worse than the than the D20 video if it didn't have the playlist traffic. Which, to be fair, maybe YouTube would be pushing it differently, or I can't 100% say that it'd be doing worse. But the playlist, the Dragon Week of it all, is a incredibly substantial portion of its traffic currently. Yeah, length definitely has an audience. Like long length videos have an audience, but they are absolutely smaller than the shorter form, or the shorter form audience. Yeah. It's really great that you got such positive feedback during the interviews. It was super cool. It was so. The interviews, the actual interview portion was so incredible. It was incredible. I loved that part of making this interview. It was a little stressful. It was a little bit like herding cats, getting people to commit to dates for interviews and such. But it was so cool. It was so enjoyable. Yeah. That classic marketing tactic that's always rubbed me the wrong way because it's used manipulatively. The hardest part is getting them to open their wallet initially. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's it's what you kind of just gotta do. It's a natural human kind of behavior. Yeah. People that love a thing want to talk on end of a thing they love. Yeah. I understand why someone wouldn't initial commit to more than 30 minutes because they don't know yet if they can trust you. Absolutely. I fully agree. I was really in that mindset when setting all of this up. Is like, these people don't trust me. Maybe they might trust me. Skip ads. They trust me as much as they trust a random dungeon tuber, right? They don't know me. They don't have any reason to like give me more trust than they would like the average stranger. So that was that I really, yeah, that's 100% where my mind was. And I should have been prepared for the possibility that it would go longer, or I should have cut it off sooner. Like, that's on me as an interviewer. And I kind of mentioned it in the Discord, and I mentioned it a few times before the video went live. Anything that went wrong with the video was 100% on me. And like my organization, my expectations going into it, my style, that's all on me. The interviewees were incredible. They did more than I expected or even would have ever asked of them. They were amazing. Yeah. Like how you always have the end of a first date planned. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was one, can this be the last question left in the edit, I think? Oh, was there? Maybe. I don't quite remember, but you might be right. Yeah. Trying to standardize length without standardized questions format sounds very tough. Yes. And and that is like, that's where I get to, when I was talking earlier about like competency levels, right? I think people assume that kind of competency on like, that I would have, if I can do a good interview, I would think about those sorts of things, a good interview. But it just did not even enter my mind. I need to ban somebody. Woo! Goodbye, Twitch user. Yeah, it was very it was those sorts of small things where like I had a lot of confidence in my interviewing skills, still do, obviously. But I just do not have full competency in every part of the process between like idea and video. I don't have full competency in that entire range, and unfortunately, a lot of things are predicated on previous things, and I couldn't go back and like redo the interviews, you know what I'm saying? And I couldn't scrap it because it was Dragon Week, like I had a deadline, so I didn't have infinite time to like try and edit it all down more cleverly. So yeah, it was. Yep, that was tough. For Dragon Week, did you have a specific day you were shooting for, agreed to behind the scenes, or was it just sometime during this week? It was sometime during this week. Basically, I don't think. Let me just really quickly confirm. I don't think there's anything that would prohibit me from telling you guys. I try to not leak if I can. No, I think this is all pretty fine. Yeah, basically there was last year they did one playlist. This year they were doing a playlist every day, and there was one big creator that they pre-planned would be on each day to try and like stretch out the interest, so the interest didn't like fade off further along in the week. And so for everyone that wasn't those creators, they were basically just like, yeah, like send your video, put your video live. And then there was like a place where we could post the link to the video. And once it was live and you had posted the link, it would be put on the playlist for that day. and every playlist, I assume except for Friday, probably, every playlist was capped at 30 people to, again, try and spread out interest over the course of the week. So, but by the end of the week, like I posted mine on Thursday, posted the link. It was in the playlist. I don't know if they used a bot or something, but it was in the playlist within like 10 or 20 minutes. It was in there very, very quick. So yeah, that was the general process. Yeah. I was targeting earlier. I wanted to put it on earlier, but I put it up probably 20 minutes after I finished the thumbnail. I did like last final checks, and then once I finished the thumbnail, I ripped it. Because I really didn't want to be on Friday. Because I was kind of worried about like, okay, it's a lot of people trying to post on the last day, last minute. I was worried that it would kind of overflow. And then the videos themselves got put in a random order on the playlist. So when the video was posted is not necessarily indicative of like where it will be in the playlist. It was just a totally random order. I think except for the ambassador, who was like the first video. Yeah. Constraint solving sounds like you're still in engineering. Yeah. Theory with better planning, it could have been one video for each day of Dragon Week, but wanting to do it all in one video makes sense. Yeah, I also wasn't, I'm still not totally aware if I could have done multiple videos and they would have been, included in the 5 days of playlists. It's possible. I didn't ask. I could have. But like you said, with better planning, because someone actually brought up something similar to that to me during the process, a different creator. And I was like, damn, if I had thought about that ahead of time, yeah, could have been. I also could have posted, clips, leading up to it, but it was, I was legitimately worried that it might not get out the door, by Friday. I was legitimately worried it might stretch into the weekend and I might not even make it into the playlists. So I was just trying to execute on the vision, and that's fucking it. There were a lot of better ways I could have done it. A lot of better ways. That's why I say, if I do something similar to this next year, it will definitely not be this. It will be different in some way. But yeah. Maybe I know some other people did multiple videos. Oh, did they? Going to the official playlist. So yeah, there's not any sort of limit that they directly communicated to us, but I would have asked, I don't know. And maybe some people did ask. I wasn't the most tuned into the Discord, but next time, if you ask a very cool question to every interviewee, you can do a 5-second smash cut of their response at the top of the video. I've seen that a lot recently on videos, like 5 answers in 5 seconds. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. The style of like showing like a bombastic clip from the video at the beginning. I mean, that's why the intro that we had for the video that ended up going out, I had no idea what else I wanted to be in that intro other than the fact that I wanted it to end with Diana saying, "This is the closest thing they have to a god." And I had like a very different visual kind of dreamed up for it originally, and I kind of had the broad concept for like what would happen in between the interviews changed a lot over the process. That was probably the most changed thing about like what would happen in between the videos. And we ultimately landed on the thing that would look the best, but take the least amount of effort. Like just really honestly, dead honest. Yeah. And similar with the intro. I had a much more like bombastic idea for it that I won't leak because maybe I'll do something like it in a different video someday. But we just did not have time. But taking the answers definitely, yeah. Oh, it was about there you go, Daniel, yeah. He's breaking the fourth wall. No. It's my assumption that being on the official list matters for viewership is real. Absolutely. Being on the official list absolutely matters. Or mattered for me, at least. Maybe it doesn't matter for everyone. I think you still have to make a good video that people will click on. Because I don't know, but I sort of assume that people aren't just hitting play all on the playlist. I kind of assume that they are still going through the playlist and picking specific videos. So you still have to stand out to an extent. But when you're on the playlist, you have to stand out to such a smaller audience that's already kind of interested. So incredibly, incredibly important. Yeah. We won't get 3 hours of interviews each year. No. No. Here's an idea for next year. Don't just focus on Monster Week. Try to have a fresh, more consumable pre-record videos released in the month beforehand. If someone likes your theme video, they go to your channel. You want them in a fresh video to showcase what you have to offer. Yeah. Yup. Yes. I'm trying to think of the full degree on how to respond to this. You are incredibly correct. You are incredibly correct. And this goes back to me vastly underestimating the this goes back to what I'm talking about or what I talked about at the very start of I think viewers assume competence but don't necessarily assume maybe thoughtfulness, if that makes sense. Like, I had a very similar gut reaction to this of like, if I could have, I would have. Yeah, because you are incredibly correct. You are incredibly correct. I also I should have been even on a smaller scale. I should have posted a short every day of Monster Week, like someone like Diana did. I could have posted a short from each interview. Like there were a lot of things that I did think about and want to do, but just did not have the capability to do. Because of, frankly, a lack of competency. Not necessarily because I didn't have the thought. And again, like I talked about at the beginning, I think it's a very fair thing to assume as an audience member that I thought through these, or that I just didn't think through these things, right? And that, I would have had the competence to do them if I had thought about them. You know what I'm saying? But I did not. I did not. And the even more things, I tried. There's a video that's about a quarter finished that was going towards this idea that I just did not have time for. Yeah. But yeah. And even more specifically, I would have liked to be able to put out the solo interviews, like those portions, like really soon after the Dragon Week video. Like I would have wanted to do it like next Saturday. I'll tell you right now, not happening next Saturday. It is going to happen slowly over the course of the months. Just again, because of like my competency in terms of editing and prior commitments. Like I feel like, I don't want to say I feel like shit, but I hate that I had to like cancel Critical Eyes. I had to go way down on Dissecting 20. Like I have all of these like expectations and commitments that I need to keep up on, that sort of inhibit my ability to do that. And it really taught me that I do not work well creatively under a deadline. I do well with problem solving and with like objective answers and objective realities. Like I do well with coding under a deadline, under like that sort of pressure. I do not do well with creative stuff. So I will probably not do another, fucking clip this for when I inevitably do. But I'm going to try to avoid any deadlined projects besides Critical Eyes and Dissecting 20. Hopefully for the foreseeable future. Hopefully until the next Monster Week. But, we'll see how that actually ends up going. But, Do a bunch of videos advance. Yeah. Good news is even if you have frustrations with the video post-edit, if they had a good interview experience, you can build up a reputation for being positive and good to talk to. Absolutely. I think like I said, the best thing I think came out of these interviews is that I just met a lot of cool people that I think want to do more stuff with me in the future. Like I know me and Pocket Dimension are talking about some stuff. Yeah, I very much agree. And that's like when I got done with all of the interviews, it felt done to me. I think I have that live performance. I have that streamer brain. And so it felt very finished. It felt very done. And then I still had to do way more work with the edit. But in terms of like the thing that felt done to me, it was like, yeah, like I interviewed them, it went well, and like I think I could reach out to these people again. Like I think I could ideally, hopefully reach out to Jason Dural again. If like Chaosium has a big release, I think I could probably reach out and interview him about it. Which would be super cool. And that's absolutely like something that I didn't have before this interview process. So I don't want any of my like negativity around like the choices that I made or the edit or the the mistakes that I made. I don't want any of that negativity to overshadow the fact that I am incredibly satisfied with this. I would say about 90% of my like frustration or sadness is that I had to cancel like Dissecting 20 recordings. I had to cancel Critical Eyes. That's where I would say like 90% of my like frustration or sadness comes from. Even if the edit had still been super hard and I wouldn't have been able to do, the videos beforehand or the clips, even if I hadn't been able to do any of that, the video comes out as is. If I would have been able to continue doing Critical Eyes and Dissecting 20 during that at their normal pace, I think I'd be ecstatic about this video. 90% of the frustration comes from like the fact that like I haven't live streamed in like 2 or 3 weeks. That sucks. I hate that. I like live streaming. That's very frustrating that I wasn't able to do that. Because it's something that I really, really enjoy. And there's an amount of it that's like, like the expectations of the audience, blah, 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 blah. But that's maybe 10% of the 90%. 80% of it is I like live streaming more than I like editing. Way more. So ungodly much more. I am so much more into live streaming and live performance and performance in general, recording, filming, than I am into editing. And I had to do like 2 or 3 weeks of just editing and none of the stuff that I like. And that sucked. And I didn't like it. Yeah. And you've now interviewed someone who works with I have. That's true. Might be worth a while to ask if someone can be used as a reference. True. I hadn't thought about that one. That's true. I love that they tried to orchestrate the big creators. They are probably the most able to hit specific deadlines, and it shows that they really are doing this to promote smaller people, not just paying lip service to that goal. I totally agree. I 100%, like, I didn't interact with Ginny or Pointy directly, besides, like, we're all, chatting in the same general chat, and maybe they respond to something I said. But it's not like I didn't have, like, a one-on-one interaction with either of them. So I can't fully speak to their mindsets. But I will say everything that you guys can see publicly and everything that I have seen behind the scenes line up with their stated goals. Like I have not seen anything to indicate that they have any intentions other than the ones that they said of, like, promoting collaboration, giving kind of the community a direction, promoting smaller creators. Yeah. I don't have anything really else to say, like anything complicated other than like, yeah, everything that I saw behind the surface, and even like something that I feel like is I can definitely say is like there was a chat to like workshop topics and like maybe, you know, connect with people about collaborations. That's how I got hooked up with Krasif, Matt, for the Beckoning Dream. Is I posted in the topics chat and he responded to my post, and that's how we got connected. And Ginny and Pointy were active, like giving people advice, talking like through ideas, saying, oh, that idea is really cool. Oh, that makes me think of this, blah, blah, blah. Like, not only did they set up the event in a way that was benefiting small creators, but like I posted an idea in the links chat and they both responded. It's not the idea that I ended up going with, but they both responded about the idea and with like commentary and like advice. I think, in my personal opinion, 0% lip service. Maybe there's some nefarious underground goal of Monster Week. But if there is one, I haven't seen it. You know what they say about assumptions? I didn't even know they had a playlist until this convo. Yeah, well, I debated putting the playlist in the description. Maybe I will. I had a lot of thoughts about like, you know, things to do afterwards. I was getting real jittery. And I was like, okay, I just got to put it away for 2 days. I gotta not touch it. But I think I might put the playlist in the description. But yeah. I put the playlist as just play all while working the workshop. All right, fair enough. As our super long videos. I think about things in terms of the journey quite a lot. That's fair. I think that's a very good way to think about things. I honestly think that I am trying as I grow, as like, you know, in age, as a person, to think about journey more than destination. I think it is much, maybe not better, but I think it lends itself more easily to like heightened like raw experiences. I'm trying to do the journey more than the destination, but my brain still does largely think in terms of destination. Yeah. I think every creative person wants to work in a world with no strict deadlines. Unfortunately, that's often not possible. Yeah. Especially while trying to do other things, right? Especially while trying to do other projects. I have another collaboration that oh, God, wait, what's today? Oh, no, do I have to submit that today? Oh no, wait 1 second. Oh God, I haven't finished editing it. No, I finished filming it. What time? What day is it due? Oh, thank God, it's due tomorrow. Okay. I'm in another collaboration right now so I was like, you know, researching that, scripting that, filming, now editing, you know. Yeah. So I think the thing that I really realized is like taking on one deadline at a time and doing as much prep work as I possibly can. And also something about this format specifically is that because of the way that I formatted it, I really couldn't start the editing process until I had every single one of the interviews done, which meant that the amount of time that I had for the edit was drastically lower than it really needed to be. Like, I had probably half of the footage filmed, probably like halfway through March, but we did not start the edit until early April, probably like April 5th, maybe. We started the editing process a little, but not most of it. Like 95% of it was still left to do because of the fact that like I needed to structure them all in a way that made sense when compared to each other. And I could have really mitigated that with either planning differently. Again, going back to like the standardized questions between them. I could have done it differently by just not doing interviews. Or doing like, I could have asked them to like film a video about their dragon and then maybe done a separate interview based on that. So that I could maybe get like some really like clear, direct responses. There's a ton of ways I could have restructured the filming process or the core idea in order to allow for more continuous editing. Because the fact that we had to not edit basically a single spec, single frame, until we had all of the footage was a huge crunch on the editing time. Huge. So that's another thing. It's just like all of this just like in terms of like lessons learned. That was another very big one. We're proud of you. Thank you. I think most of us can understand canceling temporarily or existing things for such a great opportunity. Yeah, and I totally understand. I know that people understand. I just don't like it. I don't fuck with it, man. I don't like it. But yeah. Having your particular interest in the details of gameplay, I think having you interview game designers sounds way more interesting than just trying to review a game release. Fair. That's fair. Yeah. I don't have any, I'll say right now, I don't have any like particular plans or interviews scheduled, but I am watching out. Watching out for opportunity, so to speak. Getting J&D and Pointy Hat to essentially link to your video is a thing you cannot possibly pass up. Yeah. Absolutely. Playing off the idea, I think you should totally follow up that gut draw. Yeah, I agree. Right now, I really want to just refocus on Critical Eyes, on Dissecting 20. I am actively holding myself back from looking into other opportunities, possibilities, other than the ones that I've already like soft committed to. I'm not starting anything new because I want to get back to Critical Eyes, Dissecting 20, stock some things up, that sort of thing. And then hopefully get back into a rhythm and be able to take a lot of the lessons learned here for when doing other stuff. But I will certainly I don't know how long that period will last where I'm not like looking at other opportunities, but it'll last for some period of time. But then I'll go back. I'll go back, certainly. Really interesting question you might ask your context. What's the most interesting person you know who's not getting attention right now? It's fair. Yeah, that could be a good interview candidate. Yeah, that's true. Whitney Avalon's video was a surprise. Who's Whitney Avalon? Is that I'm assuming her Dragon Week video, you mean? I really want to watch all of the other Dragon Week videos, or at least most of them. I haven't watched almost any of them because I've been trying to be like outside of the zeitgeist. But I'm very interested to watch more of them. See you, Daniel. Can't believe you are GMing the next exit. I don't know how much to leak this. I think there is a possibility that you will see me in actual play content within the next few months. But it will definitely not be as a GM. I have very little desire to GM. I would, should the opportunity and players, should everything, fall into place, I would. But I have much more interest in playing online than GMing. Because GMing, I'm trying to think of exactly how to say it. Despite the content that I make, like what that might lead you to believe, GMing is a very it's very personal to me. And something that's hard for me to convey during Critical Eyes, and that I do try to convey relatively often, is how much I bend what I am doing and like my GMing style and what we're doing to the players that I'm playing with. Like, one of the reasons that GMing is so attractive, if you've ever heard me talk about like in social situations, I sort of naturally act as like a vibes manager. That's kind of how I see myself. And GMing is very similar. I get a rush, a absolute, not euphoria, that's too strong of a word, but like I get an extreme satisfaction out of providing a structure that people can inhabit where they can really, really enjoy themselves, where they have just an excellent time. And I don't treat it the same way that I treat performances, the same way that I treat my live stream or my theater days. Yeah, it's way more personal to me. Frankly, in a way that playing's not. And it's one of the reasons that I gravitate so heavily to GMing as opposed to playing. GMing for me gets at a much deeper and much more like core interpersonal and social satisfaction for me. Of improving. Like, this sounds like dramatic and corny, but like being able to improve someone else's life a little bit for a little while, and like give them a space to do the things that they want to do, to have that escapism, to have that self-reflection, to have that fun. Yeah, that is just so monumentally satisfying to me in a way that I rarely find with other things. And I'm not saying that GMing on stream or something would be incompatible with that. But it would certainly conflict with my performance instincts. It would really, really conflict with that. The audience, like the fact that it is being observed, and not only observed, but observed by so many people, I would feel the need, or not the need, but I would feel such a pull towards providing a satisfying experience for them. And there are so many more of them than my players that I think I would do my players a disservice, potentially. And, you know, this is all my gut feelings, my gut reaction. Again, if things fell into place, I'd probably do it. I'd give it a try. But that's kind of why I am not attracted to the idea of GMing online with an audience. Or at least with a large audience. You know, if there was a small group of observers, maybe. But yeah, that would be that's my gut aversion to it. Maybe once I'm in it, I would feel differently. You know, I can never, you know, you can't predict that sort of thing. But that's my kind of gut aversion to it. In a way that I don't have a gut aversion to playing in an actual play. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sell your soul to the algorithm. Sell the soul. Join the cult and sign the pact of your dreams. Embrace the influencer marketing mindset. I should. And honestly, going back to competence, I don't know that I have the confidence to sell my soul yet. Look, I'm not saying that if someone provided me with an easy way to do it, I wouldn't. There's definitely certain moral lines I wouldn't cross. And that I'm actively avoiding crossing now, but I don't know, man. I'm not gonna stick myself up as some sort of moral paragon. I don't know what I'll do in the future. I like to think I'm a good, ethical person, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm actively trying to grow the channel as fast as possible. It's just that the way in which I go about things and the way in which I am interesting and like the value proposition that I have are not overly marketable. So I am actively trying to figure out how to market me. I've thought through a lot of options, and Paige is a marketer. So she has some ideas. But I think you would just know if I wasn't into it, and it would lose so much luster, I think part of what makes me compelling is that I'm into it. If I wasn't, I think Critical Eyes would be way less compelling. At least personally. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you need a World Anvil wiki for your collaborators and channel content calendar. No, I'm not putting up a channel content calendar. Ugh. I should. I don't. It's not a bad idea. But it spikes my anxiety so much. I have a personal content calendar. I use Monday.com. I have a whole fucking project planning board and system and software, but no shot am I making it public. Oh my God. I push back my own personal deadlines constantly. It would be more confusing if I put out a content calendar. Which sucks. It sucks. I want that to be different. That's like one of the reasons that it frustrates me to have to like cancel Critical Eyes or cancel Dissecting 20, is because I think those things do kind of have like a public, expectation. And I hate missing that. I hate missing that in my personal life though. That's not just like a audience thing. I hate. One of the things I hate most in the world is setting up an expectation for someone and then breaking it. Hate that. Hate it. No, thank you. And it happens. It happens inevitably in life. And it's one of the things that I do think is somewhat inevitable in life that I probably hate the most. Despise it. She does music videos. Oh, that is interesting. I wouldn't have expected that either. Interesting. Program management up leveling. How does he do it? Can we keep it spoiler free? Yeah, I ask CR personally. I asked the lore master to keep it spoiler free for me. Yeah. Knowing that I'm being observed, that's actually one of the aspects I meant by citing the camera in interviews. It's hard not to think about something you say in an interview being viewed by many. That's true. That's. I actually just had a Oh man, how can I talk about this without talking about it? Basically, actually, I can keep it even that vague. Me and Paige were talking about something involving a real life person that we do not know, and like something that they did and said on camera, and talking about like the nuances of them sharing it on camera. And I was like, yeah, if I like, you know, as improbable as it would ever be, if I somehow, for some reason, like met them at a party, I would love to talk to them about that. Like the nuances of it. Because it was a really personal thing that they shared. And it's a thing that could be interpreted in, I think, a few ways. Depending on how like good or bad faith you're being. And I was like, I would love to like talk to him about that. And Paige was like, oh, you don't think there's a world in which you could like get him on the channel? And I was like, there's a world in which I could get, I actually think if I really put my mind to it, I think it's super possible I could get them on the channel. The problem is, I don't think there's a way to have the conversation I would want to have on camera because of the observation. Like, I would want to ask them questions that might seem in bad faith if you take like the literal interpretation of the words. And if I'm in a personal setting with them where we've gotten to know each other a little bit, like, you know, they're getting good vibes from me, I'm getting good vibes from them, you know, I honestly wouldn't even feel that afraid to ask that sort of question. Because, like, I can really actively caveat, no, it's, you know, it's not in bad faith. Like, I can really explain myself. And if it's a personal conversation, there's pretty much a guarantee that it's not performative. But if it's on camera, I can say whatever I want. It could still be a dog whistle. It could still be that I'm just lying about it not being in bad faith and that I am trying to like trap the guy into saying something like that maybe he wouldn't want said publicly. Like, he has no guarantee. And so even if that never happens, because I wouldn't be doing that, even if that never happens, the way that he would answer is going to be inherently less honest. It's going to be inherently like controlled and narrow. And you know, and from the other side of it, I can't guarantee, you know, I can't go into that guaranteeing that it's going, like, the interview's going to stay cool. Like if like the conversation goes, you know, somehow extraordinarily bad for some reason, and we start like beefing or whatever, if that's one-on-one at a party, great. We don't speak to each other the rest of the night and we go our separate ways. Maybe there's some social impact from that, you know, as things spread through the grapevine, but it's not, you know, it's whatever. But if it's on camera, it could be way worse. And again, even if that doesn't happen, the fear and the knowledge that it could happen is going to make both of us more defensive. It's going to make both of us answer more carefully and more safely and probably less emotionally honestly. And that is what I am interested in, is like his emotionally honest answers in this case. And again, I'm being so vague because even bringing it up, like bringing up the topic, I would then have to tell you the questions that I would want to ask him. And I can't guarantee that y'all are going to take it in good faith, right? I can't guarantee that y'all are going to take it as like not a dog whistle or whatever, for certain groups or certain ideas, right? So it's this very, the observer is the observer and like the potential performance aspect of like doing something on camera or having a conversation on camera is tough. I was basically like, I would have to already have established a history of talking about and interviewing people and discussing these sorts of sensitive issues. and people would have to have a, not encyclopedic, but they would have to have a really good idea and a lot of confidence in where I stand, both from an audience perspective and an interviewee perspective. They would have to have absolute confidence in the in the baseline beliefs that I have to even have a smidgen of confidence that I'm operating in good faith. And that's very hard to build up. So I was like, I don't see any world where that happens soon. And I think it's a good point, and it's a good thing to bring up. Is like that sort of thing, I think, pervades filmed interviews or observed interviews, kind of no matter what. Like, kind of regardless of how you format it, there's always going to be that level of like observation molds the responses. But to the point that you were making earlier, I can see how it would, giving them those like questions ahead of time and letting them think about their answers gives them more confidence and more comfort to kind of combat the observer discomfort from the camera. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Game designers aren't necessarily as natural to that as streamers, so it sounds like you're good at putting people at ease. Honestly, I am not. I would never say that humbleness is a trait of mine. I don't think I'm particularly arrogant. I think I'm pretty middling in terms of humility and arrogance. And I think this is true about me. Yeah. I do believe this about myself. Yes. I think that's one of my few skills. I truly don't believe I have that many skills. If I'm being straight up, I think I have a couple. And most of them are socially related. Even like, I think my like intelligence, if we're talking in D&D stats, it's like my intelligence and wisdom, I think, are pretty middling, which I think you may not, necessarily anticipate, given that I make like what some could call, at least partially educational content, that's all about like analyzing things and, thinking through design. But I think I'm just good at thinking out loud. I don't know that I'm and framing my thoughts in a way that is digestible. I don't think I'm particularly intelligent or wise. But I think I'm good at talking to people, and I'm good at making my interior thoughts understood. Which could also be seen as like a charisma oriented ability, I think that's most of where my abilities lie. Yeah. I didn't mean a content calendar for the public. God, no. Good. No. No, I do. Yeah. I do have a content calendar. I just, I treat it as a suggestion more than a rule. I just meant if you were ever spending your collabs a lot and also trying to slow down the pressures, so maybe getting more organized tools would help it feel less overwhelming. I fully agree. I got Monday.com during this project to organize everything because I absolutely was feeling overwhelmed, and I paid for Monday.com. The fucking most corporate ass shit in the world. Cause yeah, it really, really helped. I tried out a bunch of different, companies and softwares. And Monday was the one I liked the most, to get, like task management type stuff. Absolutely made it feel less overwhelming. Really, really made it feel better. Yeah. How far advanced do you schedule your life? Depends. Depends. Socially, I get hives at plans made less than a week ahead of time. I get a little bit of hives. I'm trying to be more spontaneous, but I'm not a very spontaneous dude. Not a very spontaneous person. For projects, for like work, it depends on the scale. But I try to plan something the moment I think about it. Like in my like Monday.com, I have a segment on the board that's like to review, and I set the to reviewed. So like if I have an idea, I'm like, okay, I put it in to review, and I set that date for like 2 days in advance. So I'm like, I got to review it within 2 days. And when reviewing it, I then think through like, okay, about how much is this going to take me, about how much work it is. And I try to get to at least a soft date within 2 days of thinking of an idea. Now, some of those dates are very far in the future. Like I definitely have things on my content calendar right now that are in like October. Just because of like, you know, their priority, the amount of work that they would take, all that sort of shit. So I guess the answer is I plan it out as far in advance as I think it will be. When I encounter anything, I try to do that. Although when it comes to and me and Paige like plan out like when we're gonna hang out, when I'm gonna like hang out with friends, when she's gonna hang out with friends. You know, we used to plan out dinners, and honestly, when we were planning out dinners, we ate way healthier. But we don't necessarily do that anymore. But yeah, in terms of like daily life stuff, like sleep, hanging out, food, ideally like a week ahead of time. Although I fall short of that quite often. I'm living my best life when I am successfully planning those things out a week ahead of time. Honestly, my life goes better when I'm doing that. But that's hard. That's hard to do. And you can't guarantee we will take it in good faith. Yeah. Going back to the observer conversation. Exactly. I can't guarantee that anyone in the audience will individually take it in good faith. Yeah. Next sponsor unlocked. It would feel I would honestly. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't take a Monday.com sponsorship. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I truly don't think it's probably useful for most people. I'll say it now. I think for most of my audience, it's probably not worth the money. Maybe it's like worth the money for like your workplace. Maybe. But for your personal life, you don't need it. You don't need it, dude. Use Google Calendar. Use Google Tasks. It's fine. But, you know, if I did take a sponsorship from them, I would need to read the talking points first. I would need to know how much I'm allowed to say. Only consider this for your business. Don't consider it at all personally. I would need to know, because if the sponsorship involves me needing to try to pitch it to individuals, probably not. Maybe. I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to put anything off the table. What's up, Pocket Dimension? Hello. We've got a little bit off the beaten path, but we have been talking about the Dragon Week video, or at least that's where the conversation started. I'm sure you know nothing about my tendency to divert from maybe the original topic. You have no personal experience at all with that. No, it's not even possible, dude. Tried to go to an event today that I only heard about in the morning. I got so stressed. I got lost in public transportation, which happened to be especially busy today. I don't get stressed before I leave the house. I don't get stressed after I leave the house. But getting me out of the house, ooh. I'm a bit of a recluse in some ways. I'm really trying not to be. I think it's bad for me. I think it's not good. But I try. So I try to get out more, and be a little bit less reclusive. But once I'm out of the house, I'm chilling pretty much. Not always. Because I don't get a lot of, how do I say it? I don't honestly get a ton of social anxiety, but I do, really obsess about things ahead of time. And I've known this from a young age. When I used to do live theater, I would feel like I was about to have diarrhea in the side stage. I would be so nervous. As the lights are going up, I can hear the audience clapping, whatever. And the moment I'm out on stage, all washes away. I'm there. I'm doing it. It'll happen or it won't. But beforehand, I'm just rolling it over in my head constantly. I'm just rolling it over. I'm thinking about it from all the different angles. I'm trying to script out preparations, like prepared phrases for potential questions that people might ask. I've thought about this live stream probably most of the morning, and like things that people might say and ways that I might respond to it. I don't really have an internal monologue. I used to think in terms of getting interviewed by like a faceless, nameless person. Now I think about when I'm like thinking about a topic, right? If I see something in the news, the way in which I think about it is this may be a little embarrassing. I don't know, but it's real. I think about it in terms of a chatter asking me a question about that topic and me explaining it on stream or explaining my thoughts on it. And that is how I think nowadays. And it's not just that I'm, fucking streamer brained now. I've always thought in that general format. It used to be like a talk show host, like a nameless, faceless talk show host asking me questions about a certain topic, and then I would be responding to that question in my head, and that's how I would think about it. And so, yeah, that is where I get stressed. Is I roll things over in my head over and over and over and over again. And that's why I got stressed about the Diana interview specifically, because I thought I'd done like one or two things wrong, and I just couldn't stop thinking about potential ways I could have done it better. Like it wasn't even that I was necessarily like beating myself up. I don't really have a lot of negative self-talk, like broadly. But I obsess over alternate solutions, alternate ways in which I could have gone about things to get a different result. I obsess over it. Until, the thing's done. So getting me out of the house in the first place, that's the tough part. Once I'm there, I'm okay. It's AK. I'm on break from a patron D&D session. Just wanted to pop in and say hi. Hello, AK. Are you excited? Are you excited to do more stuff together? I'm excited. I haven't talked in specifics about any of the things we talked about, although I think we included part of it in the actual video. But I'm pumped. I'm very, very pumped. I'm pumped for doing more like individual things with people. You know what I'm saying? Not like a huge project that has all these moving parts and has to get edited and blah, 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 blah. I'm excited to do more just things with people, because that is one thing that was so awesome about the interviews is just the energy from having, I mean, not literally someone else in the room, but having another like person or people to like bounce off of. Like, I love streaming. I love talking to the camera in my empty room. Well, I guess not empty. There are dogs. But there's a very different energy to having another creator to bounce off of that I really enjoyed. Yeah. Say no more ads. No ads. This is a just chatting type of video. No ads in a just chatting type of video. Oh yeah, like that hollow stomach feeling, complete mood. Feel that hard, right down to the nervous tum-tum until the moment arrives. Yeah, the moment. And then the moment we're in it. It's also why I don't love it's why I like either being live or, I've now discovered, pre-recording with someone else. Pre-recording alone for me is very weird, and it doesn't really get rid of the empty tum-tum, you know? It doesn't get rid of the nervousness because I could always redo it, right? I could always do another take. So the whole time I'm not analyzing as much as I do beforehand, but there's a little bit of it still there in a way that there's zero of it there right now, right? Absolute zero in my head right now. But when I'm pre-recording alone, like for Dissecting 20, I still have a little bit of it in the back of my head because I always know I could do another take. And so I never really stop analyzing. But when there's a collaborator, when there's other people, and, you know, we're going and we're riffing, it's quiet. So nice. So nice. That's so funny. I similarly imagine friends asking me questions about what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying, right? Yes. See, you get it. You get it. Yes, sir. All the dagger heart, all the ADHD. Ba-da! Dagger heart. So many daggers, so many hearts. Hearts and stars for them all. That's the quote that is stuck in my head from our interview. That I don't even know if that made its way into the edit. I think it did. That's the quote that gets stuck in my brain from it. That's why we love live streams. Less editing, more hanging with cool humans like you. Exactly. Yeah. It's tough because there is so much you can accomplish with like an edited piece and a pre-recorded piece. There's so much you can accomplish and like so many formats you can target. But yeah, it doesn't quiet the flywheel in the same way. Yeah. You look so happy. Dude, I feel very differently about the different kinds of content. Yeah. I feel like I don't always do a good job of conveying how much I like live streaming, how much I love it, how happy it makes me. And like, there's plenty of things about, you know, the job that I don't like, and plenty of things about live streaming that I don't like. But goddamn, is it the best job ever? Like, it's still work. You know, there's still work to it. There are things that I don't like, but holy fuck, is it the best version of work I've ever encountered. I love it. Back to Dungeons & Dragons. See you later. Bye, AK. Have fun. It was in the edit. It made me laugh. Hell yeah. Okay. I finally reached the bottom of the chat. Were there any other comments or things that people said that I wanted to address? I've sort of forgotten. Talked about that. No. No, I don't think so. Okay. Were there any other things like inside baseball, how the sausage is made, sort of things that made it such a long and grueling edit? I'm trying to think. Because I talked about the because all of the footage was so long, and because of the way it was set up, we had to like narrow in on themes, and then we had to storyboard to make sure that there was nice transitions between them. So that just made everything harder, made it to where we couldn't start editing until very, very late in the process. Oh, yeah. I mean, Eden, yes. Raw volume of footage. I think Eden said 10 to 12 hours, about, probably, including all of like the transition filming and stuff like that, yeah. Yup, about 10 to 12 hours. And because of the way it was... because of the more naturalistic way that I did the interviews, and because there weren't like really nice delineations in the questions, I couldn't like mark the transcript or something, right? I couldn't make like markers in the raw footage to make splitting it up and editing it easier. Yeah. I think that's it. I think I've talked about all the reasons. Yeah, it was essentially just like, because each of the interviews were so not iconic, but were so bespoke. Like, that was something that I did do on purpose. Like, I wanted each of the interviews to have like a unique feel to it, a unique character. And I wanted the questions to be very targeted at the systems. But that made it so much harder to edit. And all of the reasons it was hard to edit, like, compounded on each other. So it's like, not only did, interview 1 impact interview 2 in that way, but interview 1 also impacted interview 3. And interview 2 impacted interview 3, and 3 impacted 2 and 1. And so it's like, when we're looking at all of it and looking at all the lengths, it's like those compounding impacts. Factorial series. Yeah, exactly. And so it just the raw sheer amount of stuff that there was, and the fact that the stuff wasn't easily comparable, I think was kind of the core of everything. And then the raw amount just boop, like nicely scaled all of that up. So yeah, but it was still great. It was still good. I still love the video. Share it. I think it's good. There are chapters, if you're not interested in certain parts over others. There is an unreleased portion, like a portion that was basically cut whole cloth from Super Geek Mike's, where we talked about the 524, where we talked about like the new version of the 5e dragons. I had a whole bit where I wanted to call it like 7 dragons or whatever, and then Mike would come in at the very end, like, I'm in the middle of the outro, and he comes bursting in, and he's like, whoa, wait, I have another dragon. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you did 5e. And he's like, no, there's a new one, but it's still part of 5e. So like, we need to talk about that. And it's like, okay, so it's like, it's a new dragon, it's a new system. He's like, well, no, it's not a new system. It's not a new system. It's just a revision to the old system. So it's a revision to the old dragon? And then he's like, well, it is pretty different. I know, it would have been such a good bit. Those are the sorts of things that I had those sorts of things planned throughout the video, but all of them had to get cut. Every single one. to even have a remote chance both of editing it in a coherent way and, wrangling the time. But man, I'm excited for people to like see that conversation, because that'll go into Mike's video, like Mike's individual video. And I'm very excited for people to see all of that. And I'm excited for people to see, possibly more of the people that I collaborate with on my channel. Maybe a little bit of me on their channel. Who knows? I'm not giving any specifics yet. But I'm very, very psyched about it. I'm psyched to do more stuff with more people. I'm very psyched for that. Another one of those better planning suggestions, you can see extended interviews if you become a mender would be a good pitch. Yup. Eden can confirm that we have directly talked about that. Yeah. I don't know whether or not that'll actually end up happening for reasons that are hard to, that are maybe a little bit too much sausage. maybe a little bit too inside of baseball. Yeah. We'll see. They might. Yeah. To put it very vaguely, so that you can at least get some idea of my mindset. Having two levels of having a piece of source footage get cut down or get cut in three different ways, which is what I do a lot of times with like Dissecting 20. Or what I'm planning on doing with Dissecting 20. The extended cut, the regular cut, and then shorts. I think that is nearing the edge of acceptable. I think it's still pretty firmly in acceptable. Like, I think people are cool with it. But I wonder about the acceptability of one level of cut, a second level of cut, a third level of cut, and then a fourth level of cut. Yeah. So, but maybe. I think it'll mostly depend, I think, on how different they felt. I would want them to feel like quite different. But I would also want the individual interviews to feel way more full. And so then that gets me into a question of like just posting raw footage for members only, but I don't know that I want to go down that route. Because there are certain things that like would need to get cut. Like things that were like said off the record, So I wouldn't be able to literally post the full raw footage. And so then at that point, if it's cut at all, how different does it feel, basically? Maybe a little bit more complicated or nuanced than that, but those are my broad hesitance towards it. But it might end up happening. We'll see. I don't know. I do not know. It could be. 'Tis truth. That's fair. Yeah. How many edits does it take to get to the center of a baseball? At least six. Yeah. Would also need formatting due to the weird resolution of raw files. Yeah, exactly. Like and that's where we get into like it's maybe a little bit too inside baseball, but yeah, the way that I film is like the way that the raw footage looks would not be conducive towards it. Actually, wait, I can show that. As long as I don't like play any of it, I can show how it's, filmed. So yeah, this is the Clock World one. So yeah, this is like what the raw footage looks like. So it's in Discord, and it has this like obviously it's very weird, very tall resolution. Like I have a special scene in OBS that is not set up for like a standard recording resolution to be able to fit the highest res version of them and the highest res version of me in like the same recording scenario. So there would always have to be a level of editing. And so then it becomes like, well, if it's edited at all, how big is the difference? Basically. Yeah. I imagine that the pocket dimension raw footage was the most tricky. Huh. Interestingly enough, I mean, this is more in Eden's wheelhouse of like more of what he did for the video, but it actually might not have been, because we filmed the pocket dimension footage in a program that they use. I had never used it before, called Riverside, that like locally records things and like locally records it as combination footage, but then also records everything totally separately and like gives you all of the files in this huge download. It's an interesting platform. It's a very, very interesting platform. I was originally going to just do it through Discord, and their Discord wasn't working. And so then we switched to Riverside, which I had never used. It was cool. I'm not gonna lie. It was a cool little program, cool little service. So that one was surprisingly probably not the hardest. I guess Mike's was probably the hardest for detailed reasons that aren't interesting. But yeah. So anyways, that is that. I will now point towards this video for any questions of why the Dragon Week video was so long. It's good to talk to you. Good to talk to you all. Yeah. I'm always terrible at endings. That has not and probably never will change. Maybe it will someday. I don't know. But yeah, good being able to explain it all, get it all out of my system. Because otherwise, I would have wanted to like talk about it during Critical Eyes, and that's too much cross pollution. So I'll probably give some more individual anecdotes as the months go on, but that's it. Thank you again. I agree. It was a fun stream. It was a fun stream. I'm gonna go. I'm going to maybe nap. Probably take Bird on a walk. Maybe record some Dimension 20. And I will see you all on Wednesday. Definitely. Maybe sooner? Definitely Wednesday. Goodbye.